Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nigel Canning from Zyxel. I'm a UK sales engineer covering the South. My colleague, Daniel Marsh, is the equivalent, and he covers the North. Obviously, it's just me on the webinar today. Thank you for taking the time to join the webinar on Zyxel's CCTV specific switch family. I shall get on with it. So recently, Zyxel's been looking at the CCTV market and decided to use some of their long-term sort of engineering skills to build a CCTV specific switch family. So what we've done is we've come up with a brand new lineup. They're available now, and there's two parts to the series. Basically, there's an unmanaged switch, which on this picture is on the left-hand side. That's the GS1300 range. Go into details on things later on. And on the right-hand side, it's the managed switch family, which is the GS1350 range. There are 7 switches in total, 3 for unmanaged and 4 for managed. I have a brand new Zyxel family ID, which is basically the GS13XX range. So after the presentation, you get mailed a copy of the slides and so on and so forth. So I've just got a simple sort of one-page slide here, which basically details the specs for the switches. So obviously the blue left-hand side is the unmanaged switches. They come in 8, 16 and 24 ports worth, obviously with uplinks. You've got the managed switch, which comes with 6, 8, 16 and 24 port versions. They all have high PoE budgets. They all come with uplink ports which support SFP and copper, apart from the small 6-port one, but then you can put an adapting SFP in it. And they have various features which we're going to go over later on, which are very specific to the CCTV market. But this is a useful slide if you need to discuss the surveillance switches with your customers in a nice easy format. Then the rest of the webinar basically goes over the main elements of the switch family, the PoE benefits that we feel, the specialized hardware and where Zyxel is coming from, and what's it about, the extended cable range that you can achieve with these switches and the requirements for that. There's another couple of useful features which are basically automatic PoE powered device recovery and what that is about, and also continuous PoE, which is quite a useful feature within the CCTV market and why that's a useful feature. So we'll crack on with the first elements to start with. So what is the surveillance switch and where are we coming from basically? Basically, a large PoE budget is almost mandatory nowadays because of obviously all of the PoE type devices out there, particularly cameras, external CCTV cameras, which can have things like heaters and point to zoom type features. Obviously, extended range would be very useful in the CCTV space. Obviously, normally you can only drive up to around about 90 to 100 meters if you meet the CCTV Ethernet specs, but obviously it would be ideal if you could drive much longer than that, because that saves you having to have intermediate switches or intermediate buffers. And with certain special requirements, we can now extend the driving range to around about 250 meters, and we'll go over that later on. Uplink ports are pretty mandatory, so all of your CCTV devices plug into the switch, but then obviously you've got to get that network traffic backhauled down to some central core switch or perhaps to some sort of network video recorder solution. So obviously uplink ports is pretty mandatory, and we provide all types. Specialized hardware and software. Obviously these are quite tough environments, potentially outdoors, temperature ranges and so on and so forth. And obviously there's a requirement for all of the different port ranges, so from say 6, 8 ports to 16 and 24 ports, and that's all covered by our range as well. So what do we mean by a large PoE budget? Well, bear with me, my PowerPoint has just stopped working. Apologies everyone, I don't know why it's done that. Oh, why has it done that? Sorry about this everyone. Hold. Oh, I don't know why this has happened. Sorry about this everyone, I've got to restart the actual webinar PowerPoint. Might be a second. Just coming back up again now. I'll zoom forward. Sorry about that, don't know what happened there. Yeah, I think it's where we got to. So basically the large PoE budget. So obviously, if you've got a large number of cameras, you're going to need a large amount of power. And what we're showing on the two devices here is that basically all of the devices have a large PoE budget. We also run in what's called consumption mode, which gets you the most out of your budget. And we also have fairly simple to view indicators on the front of the switches. So at the top managed device, you can see there's basically a bar graph. So if you're locally on site, you can see how well you're doing with your PoE usage. Similar thing, but slightly different on the unmanaged switch below, because obviously there is no management that you can log on to see a true PoE budget. So that has basically, are you nearing your PoE maximum indicator on the front as well. Obviously, it's useful to have indication of extended length, whether or not that's in operation. And there are indicators on the front panels as well, and dip switches for the unmanaged switches, which we'll come to later on as to how you select extended range mode using dip switches or smart management. But with extended range, we can now drive to 250 meters with quality cameras and quality network cabling and certain other specifications and requirements. As I mentioned right at the beginning, obviously all the CCTV devices are connected to the ports, and then you've obviously got to do something with all that network data. So all of the switches have got uplink ports, both copper and SFP. So for the bigger, say, warehouse type deployments, obviously you'd run the fiber back from these edge switches to your central CCTV network video recorder environment. And obviously every switch, as I've just said, has got fiber connectivity. One of the things that we've put a lot of effort into is actually specialized hardware and software design. Zyxel's been in obviously embedded electronics, Ethernet switching for many decades now, and when it decided to look at the CCTV sort of service provider space, it made a lot of effort to actually engineer a quality product that would be part of a sort of more upmarket, sophisticated CCTV solution, which is all about reliability, self-support if at all possible, and a solution that you can almost install and forget about. So it's equipped with a lot of robust electronic design to help protect against lightning and electrostatic discharges. And there's various PoE specific features which we'll come to later on that are unique to these switches. As I said at the beginning, we've got all the different port options. I'll crack on with the benefits of PoE. So obviously PoE nowadays has become more and more important for powering cameras or access control, door devices and that kind of thing. So obviously actually power over Ethernet has become a very significant requirement. Obviously all of our devices bar one have internal power supplies, so there's no external bricks to have to mount and so on and so forth. And if for instance you've got PoE powered devices and you've got UPSs around as well, then obviously all of the attached devices are going to be UPS powered as well. So if you have a UPS on your NVR, your storage and your switches, the whole security solution will carry on running with power outages, which shouldn't be forgot about. As I said earlier on, you've got simple indications of the actual PoE consumption and the PoE status on both the unmanaged and the managed devices. And obviously this is just a sort of a summary slide of where we feel you can get convenient management with PoE technology. We've got solutions that coming up later on, which basically allow you to see what the attached devices are. You can PoE power cycle the attached device. So if you feel that there's a faulty device that you need to power cycle it, you can do it from the management of the switch. You can do scheduled PoE, for instance. So a couple of our customers are using scheduled PoE to basically save power during the day and only run the solution, the security solution, at night during the dark hours. Obviously, we support PoE port priority, so if you've got other less critical devices, you can enable that. And we have quite granular PoE parameters. Obviously, some of these features are very specific to the smart managed switch, although the unmanaged switch has got quite a few of them as well. So what do we mean by specialized hardware? So as I said a minute ago, this particular type of environment, outdoors, obviously you're prone to bad weather, lightning surges, and potentially electrostatic discharges because you've got long cable runs. So we put a lot of effort and electronics design into providing a very robust switch from the electronics protection point of view. So there are a number of features on the hardware design that provides surge protection. So the first one is the power supplies chosen have double the normal surge rates and much higher electrostatic discharge protection, and they've been chosen specifically for that. Obviously, if you get a lightning strike, or you get a surge caused by a lightning strike, they can be many thousands of volts. So surges are protected up to 4,000 volts, and electrostatic discharge up to 15,000 volts. And these are very high numbers with a unique hardware design. Some other features which we're just about to show. These devices that are being highlighted here are the Ethernet isolation devices. We've actually gone to the trouble of patenting them as well. They provide 4 times the surge protection and twice the electrostatic discharge protection as well. So obviously an Ethernet cable that's laid out over a couple of 100 meters could well pick up lightning or electrostatic discharge. So these devices protect against the destruction of the electronics should you be hit by lightning or electrostatic discharge. Some other features are to do with on-chip power supply protection. So if you do get a surge, that can obviously cause the electronics to crash. So we have got isolated power supply designs. So if you get a surge, the regulation carries on and doesn't go through to the main electronics. So CPUs that are monitoring things and so on and so forth will carry on working. We also have circuit isolation as well, so that if you do get a direct hit, it is isolated from the onboard electronics, avoiding damage. We've also got stabilized power supplies and filtering. You can see the little toroidal chokes in there and high quality capacitors. These all help to provide a stable platform. What these components actually do is essentially filter out noise. So any surges or noise that's created from electrostatic discharge or lightning will be prevented from going through to the onboard electronics. And in general, obviously, a much more robust design. Also, one of the things on the smart managed version of the switch, there's an intelligent system monitor. So it's looking for anomalies. So if anything untoward has happened, it can reset the appropriate devices to keep the circuit going. And it's an intelligent device, and we can look at voltage and resets and take care of any system lockups or hangs. So as I said, it's part of a quite sophisticated CCTV switch where you're more bothered about the overall reliability of the solution. Earlier on, obviously, we mentioned extended range, and so we're going to go over that now and explain what we mean by that. Obviously, under normal circumstances, you can only drive up to 100 meters with Ethernet cabling, standard cabling. If you want to drive out, say, to the edge of a parking lot or a warehouse, that normally takes you beyond 100 meters. So you'd either have to have an additional PoE switch in the middle or even a number of switches, and that would incur not just having to install those switches out in the car park, but also you've got to get mains power to them and so on and so forth. So these switches being able to drive up to 250 meters can substantially reduce the overall cost of the solution. So 250 meters removes the intermediate requirements, which means obviously you don't need power, cabinets in various places, and obviously the security side of it as well, the physical security of it as well. Saves a lot of money and effort. So how does this actually work? What are the requirements for that? So we force the power sourcing equipment to 802.3 AT mode, and that ups the supply a little bit. We also fix the link speed to 10 megabits, so basically it meets the 10 base T standard. The PoE powered device then has to run in AF mode, and obviously it needs to support a 10 megabit link speed, which all devices are going to support 10, 100 or a gigabit speeds. But we run the cameras essentially at a 10 megabit rate. We do find that quality cabling is a requirement, and we've got a PDF that we can send out to people that any cameras we've tested, we make a note of what the cabling specification was, what the camera was, and so on and so forth. So with quality cabling, in a quality camera, you can drive to 250 meters without any trouble. The only time we found this doesn't work is if the cabling is not very good, or if you're using a cheap CCTV camera. All of the quality camera manufacturers, no problems getting to 250 meters. The extended range is a port configured option. So what we're trying to show on here is how do you enable the extended range mode on the unmanaged switches, the GS1300. So what you do is basically you set the dip switches for the appropriate ports to the extended range, first of all, and then you reset and apply that configuration to the switch. And then when it comes up, the way to verify it is to note that the link LED will then change color to amber to indicate 10 megabits, and the PoE LED will show green for 802.3ac mode. For the managed range of switches, obviously it's somewhat easier. You just log into the GUI, go to the port setup, and you enable extended range on the ports that need to be enabled. It's as simple as that. So obviously it's somewhat easier within the 1350 range of switches. You obviously have to click apply, and then don't forget to save the configuration. Verify once again that the link speed selected is 10 megabits, and obviously check that the PoE mode is 802.3ac, and then you are running in extended mode. As I've just mentioned, various types of models of IQV cameras work perfectly all right. The only ones really that we haven't found are great are these so-called pigtail type cameras. Obviously these pigtail cables are not great in terms of quality. They're a bit of a mess, and that seems to cause signal quality issues. But any upmarket CCTV camera is absolutely fine. So where we have seen any degradation, or where it won't drive to the full 250 meter distance, you'll also see ping loss. If you change the Ethernet cable to a higher quality cable like Cat6 or Cat6a, normally you're fine. If you have had an issue with a poorer quality camera, quite often they will still work at 200 meters, but the best thing obviously is just to test it out with a reel of Cat5e or Cat6 cable and see what happens. Another very useful feature that we designed into the switches is a thing called auto PoE device recovery. So what this is all about is when a camera or a PoE attached device perhaps fails, rather than have to send staff to site to work on it, you can leave the device to automatically power cycle, for the switch to automatically power cycle it for you. So it's a way basically of hopefully preventing staff having to go to site. So we'll go through what this feature is all about. So if you feel the camera's gone down, so it could be identifying which switch is not connected, finding the credentials to log in, and so on and so forth, all takes time. Which port's it on, having to physically go to site, perhaps to unplug the cable at the switch. What the PD recovery does is it saves the time and effort of going out there and going through that process. So the actual automatic mode prevents the user having to be involved. It resets the power to the device, ensuring the reliability of the network, and it reduces all of this time-consuming recovery mechanism. The way it works, there's two ways for it working. It can either work at the link level. So if you've got a supported attached device, so that could be an access point or a camera, link level packets, if they are lost, I'll go through this in greater detail in a minute. If they're lost, then that's one method of working out that there's an issue with the attached device. Or you can work at the sort of networking ping-based level. Both types are supported. And this is obviously a smart managed switched feature. This does not apply to the unmanaged switches. So we're in the LLDP mode, the link mode, which is the default mode. The frames that are going backwards and forwards from the switch to the attached device, you can basically look at these drawings afterwards and later. So depending on what the setup of the parameters is, if the frames are lost during a particular interval, then a reboot action is applied. you can specify how many times the reboot action is applied, and you can also specify the resume power interval so that you won't get into a mode whereby the switch will keep on trying to reboot and power cycle the attached device. It's all sensibly controlled and all sensibly configured. So obviously you can also, once the PoE power cycle has taken place, there's also a delay afterwards before we resume polling, so that it gives the camera time, or the access point time, to actually power up before we start to monitor it. The ping mode is very similar to LLDP, but obviously it's working at the network level. So if a ping is lost, reboot action, the number of times the reboot takes place, once again, a resume interval and a resume monitoring polling interval is specified as well. So how do you do that? You go basically onto the advanced applications section of the web GUI. And as you can see here, you either select the monitoring mode to be LLDP or ping. If you can see the neighboring IP, then obviously that's a useful thing, because obviously that's what you've got to ping. And then you've got a polling interval. So how often do you want to poll? 20 seconds, 50 seconds, a minute. How often, how many polling counts do you want before you actually take an alarm action? And that alarm action can be either reboot and alarm, or it could be just alarm. And then after the power cycle has taken place, how long do you want to wait before you can resume polling? How many times do you actually want to go through the reboot count? And obviously, how long is it afterwards before you resume power interval monitoring? And all of these are configurable from this screen when you've got auto PoE device recovery enabled. So one of the things you can also see is, obviously, if you've got LLDP connectivity, so if you've got a completely Zyxel network and, let's say, access points, you will be able to see what the attached devices are, on what the IP address is, what the power cycle mode is, and whether or not you want to reset them, and so on and so forth. All of this is configurable and controllable from the health status screen. Another feature that we had a lot of requests for was a feature called continuous PoE. So obviously, traditionally, when a switch reboots, power will be lost to the attached devices. Now, obviously, some very sophisticated CCTV cameras nowadays take sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes or even longer to actually power up and be functional. So if you need to do, say, a firmware upgrade to the switch, a lot of people didn't used to like that, because it would mean resetting the switch, and that would mean a PoE reboot would be affected to the attached device. So continuous PoE mode is ideal for dealing with those particular issues, and obviously this is just trying to show that it can take quite a while for the device to come back up. So continuous PoE mode is really useful to save that. So this saves the maintenance time, stops being very long-winded. And obviously this guarantees that if you do a firmware upgrade, the PoE design within the electronics of the switch guarantees the PoE supply to the devices, even though the switch reboots. So you switch the power cycle, and it doesn't affect the actual devices itself. So if this mode is enabled, which is up to you. So if normally you would be running in consumption mode, as you can see here on the screen, you would enable continuous PoE mode, and when the power devices are selected, that's how they would work. So you've got various ways of doing that on these screens. What this screen is trying to show as well is, if there is a requirement, although continuous PoE is a useful feature, there may be a mode of working where you would actually like to reboot all the attached devices when you reboot the switch. So you can change the mode of working as well. So you can actually go on to the CLI and you can boot with config and mode 1, and this will deliberately power cycle the attached devices as well. So although continuous PoE is a very useful feature, we're also leaving you with the mechanism to reboot the entire solution if you want to. And this is just saying, under certain circumstances from within the web GUI, you can do that. So basically the factory defaults as well. So there's a few things that we would like to point out as well, specific to CCTVs. The Zyxel Ally program, obviously it's a new platform that a lot of people are aware of. There is a specific CCTV partner level now, which offers a 25% discount on CCTV switches. So that's the GS1300 and the GS1350 family. So if you log into the Zyxel Ally partner, you've obviously portal rather. If you're not registered, then please register. If you're already a ZAP partner, then please go to the link below, fill in the registration for the CCTV specialization, and that will go off and hopefully get approved, and then you will automatically get a 25% discount on the CCTV switches. You don't need to request that discount. Your distributor will be able to do that for you and do it for you automatically. This is just a simple picture, hopefully useful for you. For the unmanaged switches, as I said earlier on, effectively you've got 8 plus 2 uplink ports, 10 port switch. The 18 port is 16 plus 2, 26 port is 24 plus 2. So these are the unmanaged switches, which hopefully fit all of your requirements. The managed switches comes in 5 plus 1, 8 plus 4, 16 plus 2, and 24 plus 2. Obviously all the management interfaces look the same. Obviously the PoE budgets go up as you add more ports. The smaller 6-port device also supports BT mode of PoE should you require it. So that's potentially for very high-end point-to-zoom cameras that might have heating and infrared and so on and so forth. What I should also say is that these switches will become part of the managed surveillance switches will also become part of the Nebula Flex range early next year, so that you can manage your CCTV switches within the Nebula environment in the one pane of glass management. So that'd be really good. As it says there, support for Nebula Flex to be released in 2020. These are the UK ordering codes. They're valid. They're in stock now with distributors now. So that'll be on the handouts afterwards. Obviously, uplinks require transceiver. These are the part numbers for the Zyxel multi-mode and single mode fiber transceivers with some specs that I managed to find out in terms of distance and so on and so forth. So hopefully that's useful to you. And then we've reached the end. So that's the end of the CCTV seminar. Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone's got any questions, or let's have a look. No, it looks like we're clear so far. Or if anybody, I'll stay on the line for a little while. If anyone's got any questions, I can sit here and answer them. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you all have a good weekend. Apologies for the PowerPoint hang up at the beginning. Don't know what happened there. Good old Windows crash. So apologies. But yeah, any questions, I will hang on for a few minutes. And have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you very much indeed.